Hello, welcome to Four Wheels in a Seat. My name's Alex Dalrymple, and every week I review a brand new car. Make sure you don't miss one. Please hit the subscribe button down below, the notification bell, and if you like what you see, could you give me a like as well? Thanks. This week I'm back in the Subaru WRX, although this time it's the range-topping TS model. I did the mid-spec RS a few weeks back, and now this is the top range model, and will be for the foreseeable future because Subaru said that there's no imminent plans to bring back the awesome STI anytime soon. But you know what? This car is actually so good that depending what you want to use it for, you might not actually need an STI. The mid-spec RS and this TS outwardly look very similar, so I'm not going to do a detailed deep dive on the exterior of this car. If you want to see that, you can check out my previous WRX review by just clicking the button up there. But the drive experience and the interior of the two cars, well, there's actually quite a bit of difference there. Under the bonnet, the two cars have the same engine, Subaru's famous 2.4 litre turbocharged four-cylinder boxer engine, which outputs 202 kilowatts of power and 350 newton meters of torque, 0 to 100 in around about 6 seconds. Both cars have symmetrical all-wheel drive, and a big difference is that this car is an automatic. More specifically, it's a CVT, which when you first hear that might make you a little bit nervous, but this is actually the best CVT I have ever encountered. It's really, really good. And it's actually more fuel efficient than the manual version of this car, coming in at 8.5 litres per 100 Ks as opposed to the manual's 9.9. The interior of the two cars are also pretty much the same. There's just a few little details that are different. We've got the same 11.6-inch big center console touchscreen, which operates pretty much everything in the interior of the car. The only physical buttons here are really air conditioning and volume controls and the hazard lights. Everything else is done through the screen. And that's okay, because this system is actually really good and pretty simple to use. The native navigation is a little bit slow and laggy and just a bit fiddly, so I think you're probably better off trying to stick with your Apple CarPlay maps or Android Auto mapping, just because they're a little bit better, but you will need a USB cable to use CarPlay or Android Auto. The sound system is by Harman Kardon. It has 10 speakers and sounds pretty awesome. Moving down the console, we've got two USB-A inputs, a 12-volt outlet, and then this tiny little tray that is just not big enough for my phone. I don't think it'd be big enough for anybody's phone unless you're still using a Nokia 8310 from about 2002. It's just ridiculously small. There's no wireless charging either, which is a bit of a shame at this price point. A bit of piano black here around the gear shifter, which has quite a nice feel to it. You can flick it over into manual, but you can't change the pretend gears using the gear shifter. You can only do that with the paddle shifters on the steering wheel. We've got a couple of cup holders there, a nice leather covered armrest here with red stitching, nice and sporty, but underneath the lid is a tiny little storage space, and that's mainly because there's a CD player in there. Now, I think Subaru are pretty much the only manufacturer who still puts CD players in their cars, and my question is that in 2023, do you really need to have a CD player? I mean, who is actually using that anymore? No head-up display on the windshield, but we do get a row of LEDs that reflect off the windshield and alert you to lane departure. It's your lane departure warning and also your forward collision warning. They all flash red to get your attention. The instrument cluster is pleasingly kind of old school with two big analog dials that are really clear. They've got nice red indicator stalks on them, and there's a small center screen which has some essential car and travel information in it and the boost gauge for your turbo. You can scroll through a few different display options there. The steering wheel probably has more buttons and controls on it than pretty much any other steering wheel you're going to find at the moment. It's quite busy, but quite practical actually. It has a nice feel to it with a leather wrap and again some more of that nice red stitching on it. The seats are ultra suede. They're nice, very comfortable buckets. You can quite comfortably sit in here for long periods of time. There's a full electric adjustment for the driver. The seats are heated and yeah, they're pretty good. The seating position is also relatively high in the cabin, so you've got a great view out the front of the car, good visibility through the rear vision mirror, and the wing mirrors are pretty good too. The sills aren't too high in the rear, so you actually have good blind spot vision too, and there's blind spot indicators on each of the wing mirrors. On both the instrument cluster and the steering wheel, we've got STI badges, just to remind you of the glory days long gone in the past. So what else separates the mid-spec RS model from the top-spec TS model? Well, essentially this car can be a lot more refined to drive if you want it to be. And that essentially comes down to drive modes, adaptive dampers, and variable traction control. There are a few different preset drive modes: Comfort, Normal, Sport, Sport Plus, and Individual, which allows you to switch various functions on and off and effectively design your own drive mode. But the drive mode where you'll notice the biggest difference is Sport Plus, where the suspension firms up a bit and the accelerator becomes a lot more lively. It hangs onto the gears a bit longer, and it really does turn the WRX into quite the performance machine. In normal mode, this car can easily switch back to being a very polite, comfortable daily driver. 0 to 100 in the Subaru WRX TS is officially around about 6 seconds, so let's see what that looks and feels like in the flesh. It's good. It's pretty good. It's not quite the kick in the guts that you might get from, say, an electric car, but it's good. It's missing a bit of that sense of theatre and the sound that you would get with the STI. It's just not there. The TS also gets the full suite of Subaru EyeSight safety technology, which includes adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, autonomous emergency steering, and many other functions which are now listed on the screen, of which none are found in the RS. Driving a WRX does make you feel like you're in a little bit of an exclusive sort of club, because I was driving the other day and another blue WRX went past me in the opposite direction, and the older gentleman who was driving it gave me the old one-fingered salute, sort of, up, yes, we've both got similar cars. His was an older one, this was a new one. I think we're both checking each other out, you know, just doing the up and down. Oh yeah, I see you. The overall effect is that the TS feels a lot less rough around the edges than the RS. It's still a performance machine, but you can reel in those characteristics when you need the car to be a bit more of a polite daily driver, and that's the crucial difference between the two. So is it worth spending the extra $7 grand to get the top spec WRX TS model over the mid-spec RS? Well, for me, yeah, I think it is. While the RS in manual does feel a lot more authentic in a way, this CVT is just so good. And the extra kit you get with this car, I think, really does justify its price. But it really comes down to what you want. If you're after a hardcore performance machine, then maybe the RS is a better buy for you. But if you want a car that can do all the performance, but then act a lot more politely on the road as your daily driver, then I think the WRX TS is the one to get.